car meetups at like kind of dinky Dollar Generals, the lone bar that everyone goes to. But at the same time, you kind of want to avoid that bar. Hello, welcome to Books and Booze. This is a series where I talk about books and I have some booze. I'm Alex. This time I'll be covering someone much recommended to me, that's S.A. Cosby's Blacktop Wasteland. And also be having a glass of this that I picked up for my birthday previous weekend ago. This is Cosby. It is a Abruzzo wine, I believe. It is a type of dry wine from East-ish Italy. It's been open for a little bit of time, but I was a huge fan of it when I had it just about like 4 days ago or so. And yeah, here we go. So cheers to S.A. Cosby and Blacktop Wasteland. Let's get into it. It's still absolutely wonderful. It is, like I said, a dry wine out of Italy. Biodynamic. I believe that basically, according to the back here, means it's an organic wine. I don't fully know what that does to the flavor. Maybe you know. You can let me know. There's still so much to learn about, especially Italian wine, that I'm just keep trying to gather different ones, try them out, share them here on the channel. But Blacktop Wasteland is a 2020 novel written by S.A. Cosby, published by Flatiron Books. The story mainly follows this character named Beauregard. Bug is his nickname that's frequently used throughout the book. Montag, who's a skilled mechanic who's living in rural Virginia. He previously lived a life as a rather notorious getaway driver, much like his father, whose specter sort of haunts him throughout the novel. But Bug is trying to leave that criminal past behind, become a family man, living, straight and clean, running the locally owned shop with, I believe it's his cousin. It's a trope that you're used to seeing in a lot of different things. And of course, he's getting more and more desperate, can't make ends meet. And all of a sudden, this heist job from some unsavory characters from his past shows up. And he starts to kind of have this push and pull as he struggles with his choices. And the novel goes further to explore themes of family and redemption and just kind of the brutal realities of how past can catch up to you. Overall, the story is pretty tense. It's very character-driven for the most part, and I'm a little bit mixed about it, and that's what we're going to get into today. Before I get further into the novel itself, there's not a whole lot about Sean Andre Cosby online. That's S.A. Cosby. Other than he is based primarily out of Virginia, although I thought I saw he used to be based out of Alabama for a bit of time. And he's known for Southern noir, which I think is one of the things that set me up to experience this book in a particular way. One of the main things that kind of clashed overall for me was these very interesting style and tone issues, at least issues for me, that kept showing up throughout the book. And I do also want to give the caveat here that my book is labeled as an advanced reading copy from July of 2020 that was not supposed to be sold, but when I ordered it on Thrift Books, here we are. So some of the things I could even be mentioning could not be in the actual final edition of the book. I think it's unlikely, but that is a caveat to some of the stuff I'm going to say here. For example, the narration's rather confusing throughout the book. It seems grounded in Bug a lot of times, but a lot of times it's third person overall, but it seems to give more of his thoughts, sometimes this character Randy's thoughts, as we jump around from characters throughout the novel. But then there's just times where it's like, I think the narration makes no sense to be grounded in the character. And the disembodied narration itself has like jabs and flavors. For example, there's at one point like a quip made about the retreat of the Confederates from Sherman in the Civil War from a character who absolutely would have no interest in knowing anything about that, and doesn't seem like they would make that kind of comment toward the character. And then there's just the tonal shifts where there's kind of these moments of dire desperation and exploring poverty and this dark underbelly of this landscape. And then it will suddenly shift to like the comment about the characters pointing out that Annie Up by MOP is about to play when they go to do this heist. And if you don't know, that's a song about running jewels on someone. It's about robbing someone of their jewelry. They're going to the jewelry store heist. It's like very like self-aware and feels like cheesy and kind of like fun, almost like Baby Driver-ish in this moment, but it doesn't blend with like the I feel like deeper themes and moments that happen throughout the book, and it's very sharp. It feels like there's this tonal dissonance that's occurring rather than like melding those tones, where there's like these hard switches versus kind of a seamless blend of those tones going on together. And because of that, I feel like it doesn't linger on the more interesting and meaningful subtext, which is a lot about kind of these greater forces that are influencing this rural community and what that's doing to them and what some characters decide to do with that and what others don't decide to do with that. And it doesn't really get to linger in that area all that long before it gets into like the more campy crime venture going on here. And some of this might just, like I said earlier, stem from me having the wrong expectations. With Southern noir, I kind of expected a sociological, like crime thriller to that degree, more detective-ish and more toned down, I guess. And this was more like crime caper, like an old school heist movie in some way. I think the Baby Driver comparison is kind of fair with a lot of the segments that occur here. So I feel like it's more crime than it is noir, but let me know what you think. I could just be being way too nitpicky about that to some degree. I had a very different notion in my mind when I heard Southern noir versus kind of this car chase crime caper that's been constructed here. By the way, everyone enjoy my bird being in this video. She's just chilling right now. What I did like about this, I think overall Cosby is excellent at prose, and I think he's excellent at capturing the setting really well. I know this landscape pretty well, like these like drive-through towns as you're going throughout the rural South, and just like car meetups at like kind of dinky Dollar Generals, the lone bar that everyone goes to, but at the same time you kind of want to avoid that bar. He does a really good job understanding that landscape and translating it into the novel. And when those subtext moments happen, I think it's really impressive overall. I think this commentary, this struggle between kind of greater economic forces, ultimately dictating what goes on in these towns that just exist off interstates, and what's happening to the people that live in those towns, what are they to do, is really interesting. And then of course the element of crime that emerges from that is also really interesting to explore. It's just the times that those are explored, the tone comes across totally different to me. It's way more serious. It's way more poetic to a certain degree. The characters feel heightened and way more alive than they do when they're going off on this heist. And again, I want to even emphasize, even in those heist moments, especially with the car action, Cosby has excellent prose. It's very engrossing. It's very engaging. The way that he's able to describe these car chases and how Bug controls the car is really kind of riveting to read, and it keeps the momentum going really well. I'll give just a brief example of the prose here. Beauregard could feel the power of the Duster's engine rumbling up through the floorboards to the seat and out the top of his head. A Buddy Guy cassette was playing in the tape deck. The warbling whine of Buddy's polka dot guitar erupted from the radio speakers. His daddy had one hand on the steering wheel while his other hand gripping a brown bag. He alternated between singing along with the cassette and taking swigs from the bottle. Beauregard glanced at the speedometer. They were approaching 90 miles an hour. The trees and rolling fields looked like pieces of Technicolor taffy as the Duster flew by. That's at least a little bit of like a spoiler-free segment I can give you describing a lot of that car action. And in terms of themes, I think the novel does an excellent job of crafting an exploration of desperation and poverty, and I think Cosby has a bit of a pulse on this. I say that because I think the novel gets more at the true spirit of poverty versus like purely focusing on like a kind of materialistic outlook on it. It's a mindset that the characters adopt and they fester in. It's the spirit afflicting them. By all accounts, it seems like Bug's in like fairly good like financial standing in this town, and he could have some kind of like mobility if things were to fall apart. He has a network through his family. He's doing overall good, but it's more about how he came from poverty and what he's projecting onto this life now, and how this idea that he can never have any kind of reversion, even if it's still comfortable, even if it's not, that bad. It's not totally a desperate situation, but his desperation comes out of that mindset and that spirit of poverty that's floating around him. At least that's the way I kind of seem to understand the way his house was described and his living situation and so forth. And I really applaud this depiction, and I think the novel does a really great job at leveraging that desire for tension and momentum really across all the characters. Information, namely behind certain things, a named value that I won't spoil here, is not fully exposed to all characters at all times throughout the novel. Yet each character sort of has this monetary level of something to lose, and it's always kind of in the forefront for them the whole time. They'll be bringing up these figures throughout the story. Except Bug, because it's his family, and it's kind of this dream that he's crafted. It's their safety and their security. So though there's less actual monetary value up front for Bug, I think what's really cool is how Blacktop Wasteland makes it where he has the least amount of information. So the idea is that the value is actually the least for him, but he has the most to lose compared to the other characters that have a lot to lose as well, though the value is far greater for them when they're looking at it. It's kind of like a twist around of how each character is approaching the heist that they want to accomplish. But even with my gripes earlier on and everything I'm saying here, I did read the whole book. I found it intriguing enough, the characters compelling enough, especially Bug's storyline, to keep reading to the end. I do think the conclusion is actually very well done. I won't spoil it in this video. I know I sometimes do that. But I think it was actually very well done, very fitting, and leaves like some thoughts to linger with you, which I always appreciate with the book. So, does Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby get a toast of excellence? I don't know if it's entirely for me. Some of that stems from, like I was saying, the expectations I had on it. Some of it, I think, it was stemming from maybe just not knowing crime fiction enough. Maybe those tonal shifts are pretty common and they should be expected. But I think if you don't care about the things I mentioned earlier on, I would pick this up. I still think it's a very compelling story. I think Cosby's prose is excellent, and I think if you're interested in that kind of rural landscape with this type of story going on in it, you should go seek this book out. And with all that said too, I would be interested in picking up another one of Cosby's books and checking it out. They all seem really interesting. At least the synopsis for each of them seems really fascinating. So I would be willing to see what else he has, and maybe there is like a more cut and dry Southern noir book. And if you know which of his 4 books that would most likely fit into, please let me know, because I think I'd be more interested in that than I was with Blacktop Wasteland. But still, either way, it's always a feat to get a book out like this, and especially one that I think is as engaging and has some interesting things going on as Blacktop Wasteland. So cheers to S.A. Cosby and Blacktop Wasteland. Thank you so much for watching this video. Did you have an entirely different experience with Blacktop Wasteland? It seems like, in a general sense online, some people do compared to me. I would actually really like to know in the comments what your experience with this book is, or with Cosby's writing in general. Like I said, I'm interested in knowing what else he has to offer. If you like this video, please give it a like, because it helps YouTube send it to people that also might like this video. If you didn't like this video, you can also let me know that. Anything helps me out. If you're interested in long-form book reviews like this with some light analysis, as well as video essays around cultural products, mainly movies for the most part, please see what else I have on the channel and consider subscribing. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in our next exploration.